and I thought this was just... Hi guys, it's Jake. So today I thought it would be fun if I did a little story time video because we've never really done anything like that on the channel before, and I thought this would be a great story to start with. So anyway, when I was about 12 or 13, my mom bought me the first Hunger Games book, and I think it was like a stocking stuffer during my Christmas, and I never read it, and I didn't really want to because it's like when your mom buys you a book, you don't really think it's going to be any good, so I never planned on reading it. But anyway, that same winter, we had a big snowstorm and our house lost power and there was absolutely nothing to do. The internet wasn't working. So I picked up the Hunger Games and I read it pretty much in one day. I loved it like everyone else. I just thought it was so suspenseful and such a great story. So I ordered the next two books in the series and I read those and I loved it. And I thought that was pretty much it. I don't know how long it was later, maybe a year, maybe a few months. My mom saw on the news that North Carolina was actually going to be the location of where they shot the Hunger Games. Which was really exciting. And they also were going to have an open casting call, which was even more exciting. But this was the year that I first started getting into acting. Not that this was like a casting call for major parts, it was literally a casting call for extras to stand in the background. But I was still excited. And that casting call was actually down in Charlotte, which is the major city in North Carolina and not really close to where I live. But they took me anyway, and it was in this mall, and there was a line of teenagers that wrapped around the mall, and I was like, I'm never gonna get this. There are literally 10,000 teenagers who want to be in the Hunger Games. And I just assumed that it would be fun to go in and give them my headshot and resume. They didn't tell us to prepare anything. I mean, we were just gonna be extras. I never thought in a million years that I would get it. But actually, my brother and I were pulled out of line by one of the casting directors and said, you come with me. And basically they expedited our process and they took our resume and headshot. We didn't have to stand in line, which is awesome. A couple of days later, we got a phone call that said they wanted us to be in the movie, which was even cooler. And the process after that was the really like kind of interesting process. We had to go get special haircuts. You can see it in the photo that I'm gonna include in here at some point and in the thumbnail. I'm also featured in the trailer for the Hunger Games, so you can see it there too. Basically, the sides were really short and the top had a little bit more length. And I guess it was kind of like a 1950s type haircut because District 12 is kind of a poor district. And that's where the scenes they were shooting in North Carolina were supposed to be in District 12. We got our hair cut and then we went to a costume fitting, and this was in like a big warehouse in North Carolina. I don't remember exactly where. And they had us try on like shirts and pants and boots. We actually ended up bringing our own shoes because we didn't like the shoes that they had. But we took the costumes that we had, which were the button-down shirt and the pants they provided for us. And after we were fitted and we got our hair cut, we went off back home to wait for a few days until we were called to come down and film. When we got the call that they were ready for us, my brother and I were actually in final exams period, so we ended up missing like 2 or 3 final exams and having to do the makeup days, which really sucked, but it was totally worth it. The first day that we got down there, we stayed in a hotel, and the next morning, really early, we got up and we went to where we were supposed to meet to go to the set. One of the really crazy things about this whole experience is that the project was super secret. They actually never called it the Hunger Games while I was there. It was called Project Artemis, even though it was clearly the Hunger Games. It was really exciting. It was so secretive. And when we got on the bus that actually took us to the lot, they didn't want any of us to know where the lot was physically located, so the windows were blacked out on the bus, which was crazy. And when we got there, we signed in, we clocked in, we were paid. That is a really common question that I get from my friends. We were paid, it wasn't a lot, but I think it was like minimum wage, and then after we filmed for a certain amount of hours, it was overtime. I think we made like $400 or $500, which was really cool, but they were really long days, so it wasn't like we were getting paid great money. So anyway, we clocked in and we went to this big tent where they spoke to us for a while and basically told us what was going on. It was all kids, it was us and a bunch of other teenagers, and they had food and drinks provided for us that we could eat while we waited to be taken to the actual set. We didn't really talk to anyone because we were super shy. I mean, I was like 14 when the movie was shot. It was 2009, I guess? No, it was 2010. No, it was 2011. Like 14 when the movie was shot. It was shot in 2011 and it came out in 2012. And my brother and I pretty much stuck together. And then after a while, they told us they were ready for all the kids in the reaping scene. And so we got up and we walked over to where the set actually was. And this is where we could really tell that it was the Hunger Games. We were passing by like mock-ups of a town and like mock-ups of streets. Eventually, we went out to where we were actually going to film. And the first scene that we filmed was us walking into the reaping. And that was kind of exciting. It was just us walking and then resetting and then walking, and I got to stay next to my brother, which was nice. But it wasn't the most fun thing in the world, and we just did it over and over. I got to see Jennifer Lawrence a lot because she was actually walking in close to where I was walking. She and the director made a joke, and I also laughed at the joke, and then they both made eye contact at me and smiled, and that was pretty cool. Other than that, that was probably the most exciting thing that happened that day. It was also where they were like taking blood samples from the kids in District 12 to identify them, but I didn't have to do that. I mean, no one actually gave blood, but I wasn't in that scene either. And so we came back the next day, which was actually going to be the day where they drew the names and selected the tributes for the Hunger Games. And they had all the boys stand on one side and all the girls stand on the other, just like in the books. And when they took us out there was no real organization of where we were supposed to stand. We were just supposed to go in the lot. So we all got in the lot, and we were standing there for like 20 minutes, I guess. And eventually I looked down, as one does, and next to my left foot I saw a little blue cross. And I was like, that's weird, I wonder why that's there. And then just a little bit later, Liam Hemsworth came out and stood on the cross. And so I was freaking out at this point because I was literally right next to him, touching shoulders with Liam Hemsworth, who plays Gil in the Hunger Games, and which I knew pretty much guaranteed would put me in the movie, even though I didn't want to think about that yet. I was just trying not to hyperventilate. After a while, we just started talking because we literally stood there for like 4 hours. I had no idea he was from Australia until we started having a conversation. We talked about the weather. It was super hot that day. We talked about the movie. We talked about his iPhone because none of the extras were actually allowed to keep their phones on their person because they didn't want people taking pictures. But Liam had his phone with him, and the glass on the front was shattered, which I thought was so funny. Because he's a star and you think you could just get it replaced. He was a super nice guy. It was crazy hot, and when it got sunny, he actually shared his umbrella with me, which I thought was really nice. But speaking of the weather, that was probably the worst thing about the whole experience. Several people passed out from heat exposure, which was really scary. But the entire cast and crew was so nice about it. Eventually, they actually rented a charter bus that had air conditioning just so we could sit on it for like 20 minutes between tapings because we were really there for a really long time. A lot of my memories have been kind of repressed because it was kind of unpleasant. Obviously, the time that I got to spend next to Liam Hemsworth was really cool. On the third day of shooting, the cast actually did something really nice and signed autographs for all of the extras, which was really awesome. So we have Josh Hutcherson's autograph, Liam's autograph, Jennifer Lawrence's autograph, but her autograph is a little bit special because my parents were also extras because they were shuttling us back and forth so much, they just asked them to be in the movie as well. My mom was a Capitol citizen. I'll include a picture of her right now. And my dad was a peacekeeper, and I'll include a picture of him right now. That was really crazy. My dad actually got to get his makeup done next to Jennifer Lawrence because the Peacekeepers got like a special trailer. And, she signed, I was in a bunch of magazines because the photo that is the thumbnail of this video was published everywhere when the Hunger Games came out, which was nuts. And she signed the magazine for us and signed me a little note about, oh, we were wondering who that lucky kid was, and it was really awesome. So anyway, that was pretty much the whole filming experience. We actually didn't get to stay for the last day because we had to go do makeup exams. But at that point, I already knew that I was probably in the movie, which was really awesome. And so nothing really happened until the trailer came out, and that was sometime in the fall. And I remember my mom messaged me and she was like, Jake, you're totally gonna be in the trailer. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I thought I was gonna be in the movie, but I knew at most I was gonna get like 30 seconds of screen time, and it would be crazy if those 30 seconds were selected to be in the trailer. But lo and behold, I was in the trailer. I found out while I was sitting in English class my junior year, and everyone found out at the same time, so my entire class watched it. All of the classes in my school were watching it, and that was really crazy. When the movie actually premiered, there was a premiere party in Asheville, North Carolina, because the movie had been shot in North Carolina, and I got VIP treatment. I got to sign autographs while I was there. I had a special reservation because I was in the movie, and that was really awesome. So the entire experience was just crazy. It's completely insane to look back on and watch the Hunger Games and see myself standing in there. The knowledge that millions of people have seen my face, even though they don't, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, those people have no idea who I am, but still, the knowledge that millions of people have seen my face in that movie is crazy. That most of the people who watch these YouTube videos had already seen me before because they may have seen The Hunger Games is really cool. So if you haven't seen The Hunger Games, go check it out. Give me a shout out. I'm in the reaping scene. If you want to go see me in the trailer, that is also available. I'll probably link it down in the description. And I realize I don't really know how to end a storytime video. So I hope you enjoyed that little explanation of one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Kitos, hey hey!